Hey man, I heard that old school engineers sip coffee while new school engineers sip lean. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Wavy Wayne from Wavy.wav, and this channel is all about helping you to record and mix better and faster. Now today, we're gonna finally have one of these debates that I know y'all been wanting to have for a long time. As I see, once I made this post on Instagram about old school versus new school engineers, oh, you ain't seen it? Check it out real quick, check it out.
Old school engineers.
Hey there, buddy. I'm your engineer for today. I'm just gonna grab a few things and we'll be all ready for the session, all right? Just got a few microphones. Gotta have a mic stand. Oh man, I've got all kind of goodies in here. Gonna need a little plate reverb. Gotta have some monitors. Can you grab the other one for me? Just in case the artist needs a mic stand or a music stand to actually put their lyrics on, you're gonna have that. I'll have a few more things. It can really get hot in that control room, man, so I got a fan for us. And here's my assistant.
Engineers today.
Bruh, I got FL pulled up. You ready?
You can master this song for me?
No, I'm a recording engineer.
Produce this track for me?
Bruh, I don't make beats. I'm a recording engineer.
You think you can mix this song for me?
Nah, I don't mix, man. I'm just a recording engineer. Bruh, I just produced, recorded, mixed, mastered, and distributed my song all on this iPad, man. It's the future.
That post got a lot of interaction, a lot of engagement, man. And so it got me to thinking, what are some of the real differences between the old school engineers, you know, the older way of doing things, and these new cats, man, the way that the new school is doing things? Me, where do I find myself? Honestly, I think that I'm more in between because I came up with some old school ways, but I'm also still young enough to be part of the new school wave as well. So I want to know where y'all land in the comments. Are you an old school engineer or a new school engineer? If you are undecided, some of these topics that we're going to talk about today might really help you. So one of the first things that I noticed though is that old school engineers didn't have all the resources that we have now. When I was coming up, even back in my day, we didn't have YouTube, man. I could not jump on YouTube to learn how to be a recording engineer. We couldn't jump on YouTube to learn how to make beats. I don't even think it was no YouTube when I go back far enough, right? So the new school generation has it so much easier. When I decided I wanted to be an audio engineer, at first we just started buying stuff, we started experimenting with stuff, and eventually I found myself going to school for audio engineering. But y'all today have just so many resources, so many advantages to being a new school engineer that you don't even got to do internships so much, man. You ain't got to worry about going to school if you don't want to. You could really just YouTube University, watch all the Wavy Wayne's video and go win you a Grammy. Now, one huge thing that people love to say about old school engineers is that they love to keep secrets, man. They don't want to tell you nothing. The game is to be sold, not told. And I think that part of that is true, but part of that is just false, right? I think the old school engineers kind of keep a lot of stuff to themselves because they might feel that you ain't even deserving enough, right? They do have like a lot of old school engineers have like an arrogance about them that you a peon. You don't even deserve to be in this studio yet. Why would I teach you anything, teach you these tricks? You need to humble yourself, which impartedly I agree that as a new school engineer, y'all a little bit too arrogant, man. And you need to humble yourself and work your way up from the bottom, man. Whether that means starting as an internship, and in my internship at Quad Studios when I first started, yes, I was doing store runs. Yes, I was cleaning up the bathrooms. Yes, I was taking out the trash. I was doing everything except engineering for months, and And I actually got to learn a lot of engineering by people just seeing my work ethic though. So yeah, the old school engineers might be holding back on information just because people didn't give them information as readily. Us today, again, y'all on YouTube all day just getting free game. It's a whole nother wave right now. This is literally the information age. So yeah, I can't be mad at an old school engineer for wanting to cover their secrets, because honestly, the way that you do something, that process that you do it, like that is why people come to you. The sound that you're able to create as an engineer is how you make your money. Now, me personally, I think differently. I believe that no matter what I teach you, I can teach you every single thing that I do, every method that I've ever had, and even give you my templates, man. I sell my own custom templates on Wayne.com that you can go and use my templates and you still not gonna get the sound that I get. Why? Because you're gonna make the decisions that you're gonna make, and I'm gonna make the decisions that I'm gonna make. And ultimately, engineering is all about the decision-making process, and everybody is wired to make decisions a little bit differently. Another big difference that I see between the new school engineers and the old school engineers is that every single new school engineer has their own studio. Everybody is able to record at home. Y'all recording on y'all phones. Y'all recording on your laptops. Everybody has a microphone, a pair of headphones, and a MIDI controller. And literally, that's a lot of all you need. You can make some dope stuff. I've heard people using BandLab and stuff like that, just recording right into their phone, man. So it is entirely possible and a whole lot more accessible nowadays for engineers to not need a big studio. Now, what does that say about the old school engineers? Well, that means that they probably are better because of the peers that they had to be around. Iron sharpens iron. So once you're locked in, you have nobody to correct you in your home studio. You have nobody to say, hey, don't do it this way. I tried that before, do it this way. Unless you tap into Wavy Wayne and I kind of become like your big bro, you know, or you join the Wavy Seals Elite and then you have that community of support. But when you are literally isolated in your room, and that's why so much music that's out right now is garbage too, because the old school artists literally had to get somebody to believe in them enough to go and pay for their studio time, take them to the studio, print up some vinyl, right? Cut the vinyl and all of this and take it to record labels. It was a whole process that just anybody could not do. It involved a lot of equipment and a lot of technique that everybody doesn't have. Nowadays, it's very accessible. When you buy a Mac, GarageBand just comes loaded up on that thing, man. Even your phone has different apps where you can start recording. So it's so accessible nowadays, which is a gift and a curse, because with that accessibility comes a lot of crap that gets put out into the market. A lot of people that are jumping off into it that have absolutely no idea what they're doing, thinking it's easy. And the benefit of being in a structured environment, like having to intern in a studio and then work your way up through assistants, is that you get that iron sharpens iron feeling to where there are other people there to correct you when you're wrong and acknowledge you when you're right. In that video, what I made on Instagram talking about the old school versus new school engineers, it might even been a whole nother one. But one point is that old school engineers had one job. You was either a recording engineer, a mixing engineer, or a mastering engineer. You didn't record, mix, and master. And some of y'all is making the beats, recording yourself, mixing, and mastering. Now, that specialization, right, definitely caused you to concentrate more on that particular area of the craft. And a lot of those guys were really, really good at what they do. And they became master recording engineers with all kind of unique creative recording techniques, master mixing engineers with all types of techniques that you could use for that. And also the same thing with mastering, especially in the day where you had to actually master for different mediums like vinyl and CD. There was a real art to it, man. Nowadays, everybody is a mastering engineer because they got an L2 limiter. Everybody's a mixer, man. Everybody is a recording engineer. So the engineers and the producer, everybody's just doing everything. Again, there's a good and a bad side to that. I want to know what y'all think about that. Honestly, me, Man, I think that you have to have some flexibility nowadays, right? Because the game has been changed. Engineers used to make a whole lot more money back in the day than they do today because the field was more specialized and there were less people doing it. So now, since there's more people doing it, more competition, you actually need to expand your skill set to offer more services to your clients so that you can ultimately hit your financial goals. Old school engineers also had to know a lot more. Like they really had to, even though they were specialized in one field on mixing, mastering, or recording, they had to know a lot about the machinery that it took, right? And this is way before computers. I'm talking about calibrating a tape machine. I'm talking about calibrating a console. If something went wrong on the console, you damn near had to be a tech and be able to do some, know about electrical and soldering, making cables, how to use a patch bay. Modern engineers know nothing about this stuff, man. If I show these cats a patch bay nowadays, they'd be like a what and who, right? So yeah, put some respect on the old school engineers because they did have to learn a lot that we as newer engineers just don't have to even think about anymore, thanks to all the technology that we have that makes everything so easy. Now, another side of this debate is the hardware versus software debate, right? Because old school engineers typically are kind of akin to using hardware processors, outboard compressors, preamps, EQs, reverbs, delays, right? They sending stuff out of, if they're mixing in the box right now, they sending stuff out of the box, processing it, coming back in, or using summon mixers and all of this to impart good analog quality sound that they are used to. Old school engineers are also more used to that tactile feel of actually touching real faders, buttons, and knobs. New school engineers, they all are in the box. Most of y'all are on the laptop completely and have never touched a piece of hardware gear outside of your audio interface. Not to say that that's bad, because technology is very advanced nowadays and there's a lot that you can do inside the box. But there are a lot of differences between working with hardware and working with the software alone. One being that the hardware needs maintenance, okay? Yes, you're gonna have to learn how to change a tube out in your LA2A. You're gonna have to understand that even if you have 3 pieces of the same hardware gear, they might not all sound the same because over the time they get different wear and tear and different coloration come from each piece. So you could be working at one studio using a preamp, then you go to another studio, use that same preamp, and it could sound differently. When you're working with hardware, there's always a human factor put in. Parts could be replaced, swapped out, customized, and so things could always sound different. So the consistency level of hardware is just not up to par with software. Another thing that software has over the hardware is that it's so much more portable, right? I can easily take my laptop, or not even take my laptop, anywhere I'm at, if they got an internet connection, I can download whatever plugins that I'm used to using and start using them. With hardware, obviously it's gonna be more cumbersome. You're gonna have to pack up some gator case, take it on the road. Hopefully your stuff isn't broken up by TSA by the time you arrive. And then you got to pull out cables and pack. It's just going to also take more time, right? Working with hardware is time consuming, especially when it comes to setup, especially when it comes to recalling, right? And what is a recall, you say? Well, I'm sure y'all probably don't know what a recall is because you never had to do it, because your software automatically recalls everything. Basically, when you hit save and close a session, it saves all the settings, all the fader positions, all the edits, everything that you did in that session. Once you're working with hardware, I'm twisting knobs and moving stuff in my real studio. There is no instant recall for that. I literally would have to get a recall sheet, write down the position of every knob, every button, whether it's pressed in, pressed out, everything, right? So recalls take a lot longer, right, for me to save that information about the hardware that I'm using, all the positions of every knob and every button. And then once I have to actually work on another mix and then go back and recall the older mix, there's no guarantee. And matter of fact, there is a guarantee that it ain't gonna sound exactly the same, because again, the human element of tracking it down, writing it down, something's going to be off, and then as you recall it, putting it back, something's going to be off again. So that time that it takes to do recalls has been really erased by using software. Now, hardware definitely has some beauty to it. using the transformers and the capacitors, running your signal through a piece of hardware gear really gives it a natural color and saturation, which is why sometimes you will notice that you could just put a piece of hardware in the chain and automatically it sounds better, right? Most plugins don't do that. Some of them try to emulate this with some emulated analog circuitry, but it's just not the same. The other benefit to using that analog circuitry is that there's always some amount of randomness, some type of distortion or something that you could drive a little harder, because you can push it a little bit harder on the analog. You can get that analog distortion, which is nowhere near as ugly sounding as the digital distortion once you start clipping. So a lot of pieces of gear are just they sound good once you push them past the limit. So this analog gear is a lot more forgiving, whereas the digital is a lot more telling of the details. Obviously, one more thing, a huge factor is that software is just a lot cheaper, man. It's so much cheaper. There's so many free plugins out here. You can't go get any free hardware gear. I'm sorry, they just not giving it away. All right, so yeah, man. Let me know what y'all think. What's some more differences between the old school way of doing things as an engineer, the new school way of doing things as an engineer? Is there much of a difference nowadays? I would love to get this debate going down in the comments even more. I'm Wavy Wayne from Wavy.com. Thanks for watching this video. Beat up.